What's up, guys? Welcome to Live on Slow Mode. This is our 60th live stream on our YouTube channel. Thank y'all for tuning in this evening, wherever you're viewing from, or if you're viewing this video after it's uploaded. Thank you for taking the time to come through and gain some knowledge that you all may be lacking in certain areas. Also discover something new, or possibly refresh some knowledge that you already have and give you some tools to where you all can express that knowledge to share it with other individuals. But thank you for joining us on this live stream today. The topic of today is the goofiness of swarthy people in Greek fraternities, part 2. And we're going to continue on our conversation that we left off on our previous live stream 59. Let me turn this down for y'all. If you look here, this is our official YouTube page. Make sure you hit this subscribe button. It really helps us out. And also watch our videos and play all of our past live streams. We have a playlist for all our past live streams, so make sure y'all put those on repeat. We are currently on this one right here, but make sure y'all play all our previous live streams. We are back in the state of Texas. We just got back from the state of California, so that was a thrill. We met some very awesome people, and we want to continue to do so all throughout the rest of the world. So also make sure you guys buy our merchandise. This is available on our Etsy page and also our official website, www.slowmoed.com. The link is in the description for this exact shirt. This is flock vinyl, 100% cotton. Make sure you get it. Very comfortable, very reliable, and yes, and it has the symbolism of Osiris, esoteric teachings as well. Esoteric africanmoors Kemetic teachings embedded in our clothing. So not only is it drip, but it's also enlightening as well. So it's far above just flashiness and just posing as far as fashion goes, or capitalistic fashion goes. Okay, so we have a lot to cover this evening. I'm not sure how long this live stream is gonna be. We have a lot to cover, and we're just gonna address a lot of these issues. We're gonna pick up the slack a lot of these other YouTube channels and a lot of these celebrities or big platform hosts or live streamers will not do, because they're too interested in other minor things, which I've mentioned all throughout our live streams and on our official Twitter page at SLOWMOED 420. So make sure you check that out as well. But without further ado, let me get started. Continuing on where we left off about the goofiness of dark-skinned and swarthy people in these Greek fraternities. So let's get to it. Let me bring up some references. I hope you all are having a great week so far. We're almost to the week. We have been in the lab. As you see, I have on my lab coat. We've been working on some slow-moed portals. So stay tuned for that. Not sure when the next one will be open, but stay tuned for that. It's sure to be thrilling. So let me show my screen. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. I'm trying to put the tab here if it lets me. No, it won't. Okay, so we're starting off with this book, The Journey of the Songhai People. Hang on. Start off this book, Journey of the Songhai People, by Calvin Robinson, Redmond Battles, and Edward Robertson. And no, that's the wrong book. It's this one. Okay. So on page 13 of the same book, we're going to start reading the whole page, but I really wanted to get to this part down here as it correlates with the topic at hand for the video. Hang on, I think my screen is a little bit dim right now. Let me solve that. This is screen 3, no. Okay, that might be better. Okay. So, session 2. Session 2, Our Raison d'Être. This is a story about black people now living in America and known by different names such as Negro, Colored, Tan Yanks, Afro-Americans, Coons, Niggers, Spooks, Shine, and many more unsavory ones. The United States Census Bureau has a 1990 projected African American population of 36 million, representing 11.8% of the total population. To give a point of understanding over, blacks in America, for the most part, are going in almost as many directions as there are black people in the United States of America. This is due in part to the drug culture spinoff, brainwashing, and, quote, the way out, end quote, music, with its sordid sexual overtones and with words so suggestive so as to make children confused, hindering the proper building of their moral fiber and spiritual direction. These conditions exist in part because of the massive influx of dope purposely pushed into black neighborhoods to help create these chaotic conditions. We have joined every religious cult in the world and are not even mindful of our traditional African religious concepts. In politics, we are Democrats, Republicans, Socialists, Communists, or whatever. We are Elks, Oddfellows, several types of Masons, and we belong to all kinds of Greek fraternities and sororities. We are all kinds of colors and physical and political complexions, trying to get to this or that place and really not going anywhere. Yes, some blacks in sports say they have made it. Some professions think they have made it. The very deeply religious thinking nothing else is worthwhile. All these different minds, end quote, which black people possess are a major factor in our being so fragmented. And as a result, blacks are at the bottom rung of the social, financial, educational, and ethnic. I don't think I have the next page, but I basically covered the point right there. Okay, so that was one reference right there. Let me bring up another book. This book I will use by another doctor. Let's see here. Ebooks. We're going to look at this book right here, Egyptian Mysteries, the Priests and Priestesses of Ancient Egypt, and the Living Tradition of Natarian Culture and Mystical Spirituality, by Dr. Sabai Muata Ashby. I don't remember what page it is. So here we go. This is on page 215. 215. Let me zoom in so y'all can see. I'm not making stuff up, but actually giving y'all the reference. Alright, so this is 215, right? See here? 215. Alright, so I'm going to scroll up. We're going to start up here. Shatat Neter and other spiritual traditions. The Temple of Shatat Neter is not affiliated with any other Kemetic studies group, lodges, Rosicrucians, Masons, Freemason, Illuminati, or Greek sororities or fraternities. Those organizations are latecomers that seek to affiliate themselves with the glory and wisdom of the ancients. Those organizations were created in modern times along with other than Netarian mystical spiritualities such as Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and incorporated some teachings of ancient Egyptian religion, but not the full mysteries of the mystic arts. Shatat Neter is an indigenously originated religion of Africa that was practiced by ancient Egyptians and is not affiliated with Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, Native American religion, Bahaism, Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism, or Buddhism. Shatat Neter African religion holds no animosity towards any spiritual tradition, but recognizes that there are some fundamental differences, goals, and objectives among the world religions. Consequently, their focus and agendas are different. Also, some have philosophy that are in complete disagreement with the Netarian culture and philosophy. So, as you see, Shatat Neter, which is the study of the hidden divinity, traces back to Africa before Rosicrucians, Masons, Freemasons, Illuminati, Greek sororities, and fraternities even existed. So, the concept of Shatat Neter was created by the dark-skinned swarthy Africans in the continent of Africa, or Akibalan, if you want to call it that. So there's some brainwashing going on in this current society in the year 2026 AD, or Common Era, and the quote-unquote black people are joining these Greek fraternities and sororities, trying to fit in, as opposed to following their ancient African consanguineal connection to African traditions and Africa's contributions to civilization. Now, Africa is responsible for writing, for mathematics, for medicine, for the alphabet, for astronomy, for chemistry, metallurgy, and even more. And I will eventually pull up more references, but I want to show the goofiness of the dark-skinned people joining these Greek sororities and pledging, I'm a Omega and all this, and you got these celebrities that are pledging Greek, and they're flexing their Greek whatever, dark-skinned and swarthy, have the resources to go all over the world, have the resources to educate themselves on the origins of civilization and the origins of the teachings of Greek philosophy that was stolen from African philosophy, which is actually just simply stolen African philosophy. But I'm just presenting the evidence because it will not be discussed by these athletes and celebrities because they're brainwashed as well, as of the origin of these teachings. So we need to set the record straight, and let me give some more references. Now, I've already provided 2 references already. Let's see here. Where did I leave off at? That's not it. Let's see here. Let's go back here. Let me change the view because I can't see. So I want to show again the we're going to show this book, Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man by Dr. Albert Churchwood. And no, it's the wrong book. Hang on. So like I showed like in our previous live stream, it is mentioned by Eusebius, Plato, and Tacitus all state that the Phoenicians did not claim themselves to be the inventors of the art of writing, but admitted that it was obtained by them from Egypt. Therefore, the Egyptians were the inventors of the alphabet. You see here, like, okay, so you got Omega branded on your shoulder. You know, the blacks are only taught slavery and only taught the transatlantic slave trade and what was done to their ancestors, right? And the slaves were branded during slavery, branded in the arm. So you have the swarthy Greek sorority members getting branded in the arm by Omega, right? And they don't even know the origin of the alphabet came from their ancestors, but they have a Greek symbol on their arm, and not tracing it back to Africa, but only sticking to Greek. Okay, now this is an issue, because not knowing that, they are leading future generations in order to do the same thing just to fit in. Now it's goofy because it's really contradictory to their ancestors and their descendants, and you know, let's see here. Now I wanted to show Shekanta Jope. We're gonna get into some really deep things here, so make sure y'all pay attention. Make sure y'all drop some comments on the video. We're about to get in some really deep teachings here, and it might make a lot of you uncomfortable. Let's see here. Let me move this really quickly. I want to show you all something. Let me pull up another book for you. You know, actually, I think I have a tab open already. I probably already have the book open. Now I'm going to go to. Well, you know what? We're gonna keep on. We're gonna stay on the Greek philosophy for the time being, just for right now. And then we're going to go into the deep teachings. Alright, we're going to go to the book Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. Let me bring it up on the screen. We're going to be reading this book. Let me see if everything is good. Everything is running smooth. Yes, everything is running smoothly. Okay, cool. Y'all can see my face? We're good. We're good. Okay, hang on. I got to move around a little bit. Alright. So, we're going to go into the book Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. This is our third reference of this live stream. No, this is our fourth reference, because we already had Journey of the Songhai People, Egyptian Mysteries, Volume 3, signs and symbols of primordial man, and now we have stolen legacy, and we have more. So I want to I'm gonna read a little bit of this. I'm gonna start here. This is page 218, but this is the ebook, so it could be off. Let me go to the chapter. So this is chapter 9, Social Reformation through the New Philosophy of African Redemption. Okay. Now it says, this I suggest should be done by a worldwide dissemination of the truth through a system of re-education in order to stimulate and encourage a change in the attitude of races toward each other. In combining their efforts, both races must not only preach and teach the truth that the mystery system of the African continent gave the world philosophy and religion and the arts and sciences, but they must see to it that all false praise of the Greeks that the Greeks be removed from the textbooks of our schools and colleges. For this is the practice that has blindfolded the world and has led the foundations for the deplorable race relations of the modern world. The name Pythagoras, for instance, should be deleted from our mathematical textbooks in geometry, where the theorem of the square of the hypotenuse of the right angle triangle is called the Pythagorean theorem, because this is not true. We must point out to the world the deception in attaching the authorship of Socrates to the precept, quote, man know thyself, end quote, and then attaching the authorship of Plato to the four cardinal virtues, since Socrates obtained the self-knowledge precept from the Egyptian temples, where it was used as an inscription, and Plato reduced the 10 virtues of the North African mystery system to 4. We must also prove to the world that the doctrines of the so-called Greek philosophers originated from the ancient mystery system of North Africa. This proof has been set forth in chapters 5 to 8 of Stolen Legacy, and in order to carry out our worldwide crusade, we must recommend Stolen Legacy for adoption and study in the schools and colleges of both racial groups, and in our fraternities, sororities, and interracial groups, in order that young and old of our present generation might all get to know the truth and be able to pass it on to future generations. So it's like I mentioned earlier, by them not knowing the origin of African philosophy, and the Greeks plagiarizing it and stealing it from the Africans, by the Swarthy members joining these Greek fraternities and sororities and not knowing their African connection, this is damaging to the future generations of people, young and old, and going into the future. So from 2026 beyond, this is detrimental to the future of dark-skinned and Swarthy people specifically.
Have your W-2 and file your taxes 100% free, plus get your biggest refund, roughly 30 cents.
So I'm gonna start on page, this is same chapter, chapter 9. Okay, I'm gonna start right here. Page 223. This is the ebook, so it might not be the right page. So, being liberated from inferiority complex by their new philosophy of redemption, which is destined to destroy the chain of false tradition which has incarcerated them, the black people must face and interpret the world according to their new vision of philosophy. Throughout the centuries up to the modern times, world conditions have been influenced by two phenomena which have affected human relations. 1. The giving of false praise to the Greeks, a custom which appears to be an educational policy conducted by educational institutions. This has led to the false worship of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle as intellectual gods in all the leading universities of the world. And in support of this intellectual worship, these institutions have also organized what are known as Greek-lettered fraternities and sororities as the symbols of the superiority of Greek intellect and culture. 2. The second phenomenon is missionary enterprise, whereby the black people's culture has been caricatured in literature and expeditions and such specimens as provoke disrespect and laughter. Never let us forget that the Roman emperors Theodosius and Justinian were responsible for the abolition of the Egyptian mysteries, that is the culture system of the black people, and also for the establishment of Christianity for its perpetual suppression. Likewise, never let us forget when we are reviewing this bit of history that the Greeks called the Egyptians Hoi Egypto, which meant black people, and living up to their new philosophy of redemption, the life of the black people will have to be one of counteraction against these two sets of conditions. In the first place, the black people must adopt a negative attitude towards this type of phenomenon, because they have become fully aware of these phenomena as a result of false tradition, and therefore also partake of the nature of falsehood and insecurity. In this negative attitude, the black people of the world must shun the false tradition and must teach the truth, which is their new philosophy of redemption. This must be done in the home to young children, in the colleges and schools to students, from the pulpits and platforms to audiences, and in the fraternities and sororities to the young men and women. This new philosophy of redemption, being a revelation of truth in the history of black people's civilization, must become a necessary portion of their education and must be taught for generations and centuries to come in order to fill them with inspiration and pride and liberate them from mental servitude. In the second place, in this negative attitude, the black people must demonstrate their disbelief in the false worship of Greek intellect. This should be done in the following three ways. 1. They must discontinue the practice of quoting Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle in their speeches as intellectual models, because we know that their philosophy was stolen. 2. They must relinquish membership from all Greek lettered fraternities and sororities. And 3. They must abolish all Greek lettered fraternities and sororities from all colored colleges, because they have been the source of the promotion of inferiority complex and of educating the black people against themselves. We come now to the counteraction of the second set of phenomena, the missionary activities and defamation literature and exhibitions which provoke disrespect for the laughter at the black people. So they're laughing at you. They're making fun of you because you don't know that Greek philosophy is stolen African philosophy. You don't know that the alphabet came from Africa. You don't know that writing came from Africa. You don't know that mathematics came from Africa. So while they're putting all this Greek stuff, they're putting these Greek symbols and mathematics, they're putting in calculus 1, 2, 3, differential equations, trigonometry, etc. They're putting all this Greek symbols in this mathematics, and the Africans are responsible for math. Do you see how goofy this is? Now, where am I getting this? Where am I getting that the Africans are responsible for math? As you see here, They must abolish all Greek-lettered fraternities and sororities from all colored colleges because they have been a source of the promotion of inferiority complex and of educating the black people against themselves. Okay? So the black people, quote unquote, black people do not know their African Moorish history, do not know their African Moorish contributions to civilization, and they're pledging and joining Greek and Freemasonic orders to fit in to the club and get the good nigger sticker. And celebrities are not saying nothing. Streamers are not saying nothing. Big platforms not saying nothing. Excuse me. So I just showed you all 4 references with hard evidence to do your research yourself. And I even showed you. I have the pages here. It's easy to look for these online. You can buy these books on Amazon. But the information is here. Now, we can sit on here on social media and eat in our car for food reviews while wasting time. We can do it. It's easy to do that. It's easy to avoid this information and just look at food reviews and focus on the manosphere and all this other BS, right? It's easy to do that and not pay attention to African Moorish history. It's easy to do that. But it's easy to join the group and have a network while going against your own ancestral knowledge, right? So I just showed you all four references of hard evidence. These sources have been used over and over again. Now I'm about to show some information that will probably raise a lot of you guys' eyebrows. Okay? Now, I keep saying, okay, the Africans are responsible for writing, for mathematics, astronomy, chemistry. I keep saying all this, right? Where am I getting that from? Let's look. Are y'all starting to see how goofy this is? But you gotta sit here and compete with the rest of the world, and you're responsible for writing. Come on now. Come on now. Why these celebrities not saying nothing? Some of them know, some of them don't know. But they need to say something. Hang on. Trying to get back to where I was. Which one is it? Okay, here it is. So we're going to look at the same book, Journey of the Song God People. We're going to look at the same book, right? This is the same book. Hang on. That's not it. I'm going to get there later on. It's not it. Okay, so this is page 14 of the same book, right? As you proceed into this history, you'll see that all nationalities were and are recipients of the great good things that the Africans so heavily contributed to world civilizations. The Africans were the first in just about everything concerning civilization advancement. Reference, Cultural Genesis. This is the same book. Hang on. Here's a little bit of it. It's not organized, but this is page 74. I'm gonna start down here. Hang on. Let me let y'all see, because I can't. Hang on. It's not moving. Alright, forget it. So Gerald Massey, one of England's greatest historians, tell us that the earliest wise men came from a place in southern Africa named Kentiu. This location is identified with the Egyptian goddess Nekbit, who came forth in the south, and as such was the opener, organizer, ruler of that region. She was also the goddess of the cardinal directions that identifies her with what we now call the science of astronomy. Okay, so astronomy came from Africa first, before any other continent. Just like the first humans came from Africa, astronomy came from Africa. So the cardinal directions, if you look at the stone monoliths in South Africa, in Izala Ilanga, as known as Adam's calendar, is dated 75,000 through possibly 150,000 years old. So that means they're in alignment with the cardinal directions. Now, I haven't did further research into it, but they're in alignment with the cardinal directions, and they are stated to be 75,000 years to 100,000 years old. Of course, that's not mentioned in this book, but we also have here on page 78, and I'm going to start up here with my references or my notes. I'm trying to scroll up, but it's not letting me. Okay, whatever. So Massey states that the Typhonians were the most learned of Egypt, and the builders of the pyramid were acquainted with the real length of the cycle of precession of the equinox, and that they discovered the motion of the apsides or longer sides of the Earth's orbit. Moses Cotsworth says that they could measure the length of a year to 365.24219 of a day. Early African people expressed many of their views about the universal forces, NETU or NTU, in terms of the mysterious marvels of the female principle. Wallace Budge said, quote, "When male is replaced with female, it relates to Ma'at principle in dealing with celestial math calculations," end quote. This means that the female principle is the one that reckons in heaven the counter of the star Ushu, the enumerator of the earth and the measure of earth. Her knowledge and power of calculations measures out the heavens and plan the earth and everything which is in them. This African goddess was also part of those who invented astronomy and astrology, the science of numbers, mathematics, land surveying, medicine, and botany. Okay, so I'm showing you the reference of the origin of math right here by doctors and legal doctors. So they study law. Ooh, that's something else. Okay, and to go even further, we're gonna show some more. Hang on, let me pull that up for you real quick. Now we're going to go to the book. Since we're on the topic of the calendar, we're going to go to the book Black Genesis The prehistoric origins of ancient Egypt. We're gonna go this book, right? I can't remember the page, but I'm gonna bring it up. I read it a couple of days ago, or I think I got a screenshot somewhere, so I didn't. Let me look for it real quick. Let's see here. Calendar. Okay, cool. I got the reference here. Hang on. Let me put in the exact term so I can get there faster. So, Geminal. Okay, so this is gonna be on page 365. Ironic. So, the sacred year inundation. I'm trying to find the chapter. All right, hang on. Where's the damn chapter at? Chapter 6. So it's chapter 6. I think that hang on. All right, I was here. All right. So the calendar. We're gonna use multiple sources. So I'm gonna start. Y'all can read all this by yourselves, but I'm gonna read this up here too. I'm read both pages. Forget. So the sacred yearly inundation. Each year the Nile started to swell in mid-June and spilled its water on the adjacent valley. Herodotus, who journeyed in Egypt in the 5th century BCE, commented, quote, about why the Nile behaves precisely as it does, I could get no information from the priests, nor yet from anyone else. What I particularly wish to know is why the water begins to rise at the summer solstice, continues to do so for 100 days, and then falls again to the end of that period, so that it remains low throughout the winter until the summer solstice comes round again in the following year, end quote. What Herodotus wanted to know, and what the Egyptians could not or would not tell him, was that the reason the Nile behaved in the mysterious way was because of the monsoon rains in the distant south, which in a sense regulate the flow and level of the river. Even after the monsoons receded south of Egypt, and the rains that had once drenched the dry Sahara each summer came to an end, much of the downpour of the rainwaters did in fact still reach Egypt via the Nile. Like the Nabta-Playa prehistoric stargazers before them, who experienced monsoon rains, the ancient Egyptian astronomers could not help but notice that the annual arrival of the flood occurred when the sun rose at its most northerly position on the eastern horizon, that is, at summer solstice. The common view among scholars is that this prompted the ancient stargazers of the Nile to count the number of days between each cycle, reaching the conclusion that it took 365 days a year, which furthermore made the summer solstice their New Year's Day. If we observe sunrise from the same place each day, we can notice that the sun changes position along the eastern horizon between two extreme points. The summer solstice to the far left north and due east, and the winter solstice to the far right south of due east. At these two extreme points, the sun appears to be stationary for a week or so, hence the term solstice, from the Latin which means, quote, stationary sun, end quote. In our modern Gregorian calendar, the summer solstice falls on June 21st and the winter solstice falls on December 21st. The sun's journey from one solstice to the other and back takes 365 days, which we call 1 year. Most historians agree that this discovery was made first in Egypt in the 4th millennium BC. As we have seen, however, the evidence now strongly suggests that the discovery was made much earlier in the Egyptian Sahara and was then imported into the Nile by the quote, black people. Of course, there's no quote here, but we know who we're talking about, that traveled there from Nabta. Admittedly, this discovery was probably refined a few centuries later, most likely sometime around 2800 BC, by the ancient Egyptians, by the sun priests of the great sun temple at Heliopolis near modern Cairo, to produce a sophisticated calendar with weeks and months. Egyptian calendar divisions. The Egyptian calendar was divided in the following manner: 12 months and 30 days, with each month having 3 weeks or decades of 10 days. The 12 months amounted to 360 days, to which were added 5 days known as the epigeminal days, or 5 days upon the year, thus making up the full 365-day year. Now, let me touch on those 5 epigeminal days. Those 5 days are what we call the 5 Neteru. That would be the principles of Osiris, or the real name ASAR, Aset or Isis, Nephis or Nebutet, Set or Setiphon, and Horus or Haru. Okay, those made up the 5 days. And I don't know if he mentions it, I can't remember. But let us continue. The Egyptian year had only 3 seasons of 4 months each. The first season, called Aket, meaning, quote, inundation, quote, from months 1 to 4. The second season, called Puret or Proyet, meaning, quote, the emergence, end quote, or, quote, coming forth, end quote, from months 5 through 8. And the third season, called Shimu, meaning, quote, harvest, end quote, from months 9 to 12. Originally, the months were not given names, but were assigned only numbers from 1 to 12. The first day of the first month of the first season was known as 1 Aket, that is, month 1, season Aket, day 1. Later in the New Kingdom, the months received official names: 1 Thoth, 2 Fapi, 3 at year, 4 Choikike, 5 TB, 6 Mekchir, 7 Faminoth, 8 Farmuti, 9 Pakhons, 10 Peni, 11 Ephi, and 12 Mesor. Egyptologists and historians can never agree on the age of the Egyptian calendar. However, there is much evidence to support the conclusion that the calendar was already in place during the Old Kingdom. I guess I'll continue. The solar tropical year is, in fact, longer than 365 days by a very small fraction, almost a quarter of a day. The exact value of the year is 365.2422 days. Now, this is the same as our previous reference that we just showed. If I can bring it up again, I forgot which page it was. Hang on. Is it there? I don't see it. Oh, there you go. So, this reference says, it shows the number right there, right? So if we go here, okay. This is like what, our 6th reference that I'm showing you, 6th or 7th book. Come on, and we're joining Greek fraternities and sororities, and the Swarthy people don't even know this. They don't know that their ancestors are responsible for the calendar that we're using now. Do you see the goofiness of this? Do you see how goofy this is? But I'm a Omega. and this is no offense to any Greek frat members or sorority members, but hey man, somebody's been lying to you, and I'm just showing the evidence that they ain't gonna show you while you're getting branded. So yeah, let's continue. What else can we find here? I can show. Hang on. Let's go to Dr. Sheikant Jope. The African origin of civilization, myth or reality. They've been playing y'all. I'm sorry. They have been playing y'all. And these celebrities and podcasters, big name dudes, they ain't saying nothing. They just having a good time. And this is critical information for the quote unquote black people, because they're brainwashed to believe that their history only started with slavery. So we're going to go to page, let's see here, a moment. So I'm going to start right here on page 130, and this is chapter, let's see here. This is chapter 3. Chapter 3, Modern Falsification of History by Sheikant Jope. Now, y'all see this highlighted section here? I want to mention this really quickly. It has nothing to do with the topic, but I want to mention it because, unfortunately, we are all humans. So, as humans, we tend to make errors or mistakes sometimes, and it's not purposely done. But I know we should hold our ancestors in high regard, but we should also correct the errors that they made. So I recently watched a video by Dr. Infudisi Jehutimus, who I have learned a lot from. Infudisi Jehutimus, if y'all can see the title of the book, Spiritual Warriors and Healers, Infudisi Jehutimus. I learned a lot from Dr. Infudisi Jehutimus, but he said something that I didn't agree with, and he said that we shouldn't. Not that I'm putting down the scholars before us. I'm addressing the error that he's made that has set back, quote unquote, black people for a couple generations. The blunder that he made, that Sheikant Jope made, unfortunately, has set back, quote unquote, black people a couple generations, a couple decades, because Pan-African historians that looked up to Dr. Sheikant Jope blindly ignored his error on his interpretation of the etymology of the word Moor. Okay, now this is mentioned by Dr. Jose V. Pimenta Bay in his book Othello's Children of the New World, and it's also mentioned in Golden Age of the Moor by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. I can pull it up really quick. So I'm going to do that. Let's stick on this point for right now, because this is very important. And I've seen Dr. Infudishi disagree with the Moors, and it seems as though like the etymology of the word Moor is not understood, and has been basically interpreted wrong. So I'm gonna bring up that reference because it's very important to this topic. All right. Bear with me one moment as I look up this reference. Okay, so as we're speaking on this topic, this is the same book that Jose V. Pimenta Bay was referencing. So on page 6 of Golden Age of the Moor, I'm gonna show you the title. All right, so this is the book we're looking at now, Golden Age of the Moor, edited by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. On page 6. Let me zoom in so y'all can see. So, in his discussion of Berber ethnic origins, Jose Pimenta Bay cites the views of Sheikh Anta Diop on the matter of the Moors and the Berbers. However, Diop or Diop is not particularly helpful. It is refreshing that Bay sees this very clearly and qualifies his support. Although he cites the master with respect, he does not follow him. Diop or Diop makes the unsupportable claim that the Berbers were post-Islamic invaders. His uncharacteristically uninformed commentary on the Moors led me to delete that section of his otherwise remarkable paper, which it was my honor to read at the Nile Valley Conference held in Atlanta, 1984. And hang on, this is just the first part of what I want to show y'all. I can't remember the exact page. Where is that page at? Hang on. Give me one moment while I look for this. Oh, I'm clicking. I was trying to go to the next page. Okay, so I'm going to start with I'm going to start on page 185, and we're going to read a little bit of this, and we're going to get back to our topic at hand. We are... How far are we in on this live? I don't know. Oh, we are an hour in. Okay. We are an hour into the live. Hang on. Let me get these windows back up. I don't know which tab is the YouTube one in. Hang on. Bear with me one moment. Trying to see where we're at. Okay, we're at 1 hour. Let me put in the... Subscribe to our channel. Hit that subscribe. Hit that like button. Share this out if you all wish to do so. It helps us out. And we're going to start on page 185. Okay, let's get back to it. I'm going to start here at the term Berber. Alright, so let me zoom in. This is by Jose V. Pimenta Bay. Y'all can see the screen. My face isn't in the way. Cool. Okay, the term Berber is believed to have come from the Latin word Barbary, which the Romans used to categorize all the indigenous peoples of northern and western Africa, Mauritania, who resisted their invading imperial armies. Following the establishment of the religion of Islam in the 17th century, Arabian nationals are said to have then adopted the Roman term as their own designate for these indigenous Maghrebi peoples, which they too encountered in trade and war. The Arabs are said to have altered the reference only slightly, and Barbary became Berber. Sheikh Anta Diop presents another assessment of the term, quote, Berber, end quote, and the origins of the Moors. Dr. Diop contends that the term, quote, Berber, end quote, is etymologically tied to the term Ber, which implies that the, quote, Berbers, end quote, were foreign. He writes, the root of this word Berber was probably of Negro rather than Indo-European origin. In reality, it is an onomatopoeic repetition of the root Ber. This kind of intensification of a root is general in African language, especially in Egyptian. He continues, moreover, the root of bar in Wolof means, quote, to speak rapidly, end quote, and barbar would designate a people that speaks an unknown language, therefore a foreign people. Dr. Diop also goes on to say that the Moors are descendants of, quote, post-Islamic invaders, end quote. He states, starting from Yemen, the Moors conquered Egypt, North Africa, and Spain between the 7th and 15th centuries. From Spain, they fell back on Africa. Thus, the Moors are basically Arab Muslims whose installation in Africa is quite recent. Numerous manuscripts preserved by the principal Moorish families in Mauritania today, manuscripts in which their genealogy is minutely traced since their departure from Yemen, testify to their origin. Moors are therefore a branch of those whom it is customary to call Semites. Dr. Diop may or may not be correct in his assessment of the origin of the word Berber. However, what needs to be questioned is the criteria by which certain Africa-based peoples have been placed in the category of, quote, Berber, end quote. Another important question is how long the term had been used. And you have this picture right there if y'all want to look at that and pause the video. Okay, and on 187, I was a bit disappointed with Dr. Diop in his brief assessment of the Moors. For a man who so often analyzed words and their significance, Diop failed to address the etymology of the word, quote, Moor, end quote. Wayne B. Chandler, in his essay, quote, The Moor, Light of Europe's Dark Age, end quote, informs us that the English word, quote, Moor, end quote, originally comes from the Greek adjective, quote, mauros, end quote, which literally means, quote, black, end quote, or very dark in color. The Romans would later adopt the word as a reference for the black-skinned inhabitants they encountered in Africa. Again, we recall that it was the ancient Romans who called the entire region of northwestern Africa Mauritania. Needless to say, this translates from Latin as, quote, the land of the black-skinned people, end quote. On the issue of the Moors coming originally from Yemen in the 7th century, Diop himself tells us that Yemen, quote, was a Negro Ethiopian colony and remained so until the birth of Muhammad, end quote. He also informs us that Gez, or Gizi, the language of Abyssinia, quote, is the living remnant of the ancient language of Yemen, end quote. With regard to the, quote, Arab, end quote, element of the Moors and Africa's Islamic culture, Job says that, quote, when Muhammad was born, Arabia was a Negro colony with Mecca as its capital, end quote. He adds, quote, the entire Arab people, including the Prophet, is mixed with Negro blood. All educated Arabs are conscious of that fact, end quote. Job even discusses ancient Kemetic practices of worship which strangely resemble some major elements of Islamic traditions. All these facts compel us to reevaluate the significance of Job's initial inference that 1. The Moors and Berbers are unequivocally one of the same, and 2. These people, Moors, Berbers, I don't think y'all can see me. Where was that? Moors, Berbers are foreign to Africa and therefore non-African. We will come back to Job later. So the reason why I wanted to address that was because I highlighted it in here on this chapter. I think chapter 3. Let us analyze Champollion's Figet's statements point by point. Contrary to his opinion, the Kafirs do not constitute a race. The word Kafir comes from an Arab word meaning pagan, the opposite of Muslim. When the Arabs entered Africa via Zanzibar, this was the word to designate the populations they found there who practice a religion different from their own. As for the Moors, they descend directly from post-Islamic invaders who started from Yemen, conquered Egypt, North Africa, and Spain between the 7th and 15th centuries. From Spain, they fell back on Africa. Thus, the Moors are basically Arab Muslims whose installation in Africa is quite recent. Numerous manuscripts preserved by the principal Moorish families in Mauritania today, manuscripts in which their genealogy is minutely traced since their departure from Yemen, testify to their origin. Moors are therefore a branch of those who is customary to call Semites. What will be said about the Semites later in this volume will dispel any possible making them the creators of Egyptian civilization. Like the Berbers, the Moors are hostile to sculpture, whereas Egyptian culture attaches great importance to the artistic manifestation. In the same chapter, the racial admixture of the Semite will be stressed. To this, rather than to climate, the color of the Moors should be attributed. Moreover, whether it be a question of mummies or living persons, there is no possible comparison between the skin color of the Moors, even tanned by the sun, and the black Negro complexion of the Egyptians. So, Moor, according to the Greek language, mauros, which is the predecessor of the word Moors, meant dark-skinned swarthy, according to Greek and Roman. Now, what I want to get to, continuing on from the the 365 in the quarter day calendar. Let me see what chapter this is. Is this the same chapter? I think it is. So this is chapter 3, Modern Falsification of History. So let's continue. And we're going to start right here on page 130. This is the ebook, so it might not be correct with what y'all are reading this book from. Next, we come to the thesis of Abbé Emile Emelinu, 1850 through 1916. A great Egyptologist seldom mentioned. He excavated at El Gab near Abydos and discovered a royal necropolis where he was able to identify the names of 16 kings, more ancient perhaps than Menes. He found tombs of 4 kings, Ka Den, the Serpent King, Jet, whose stele is at the Louvre Museum, and another whose name has not been deciphered. As Emelinu reports, attempts have been made to include these monarchs in historical period. Quote, at the meeting of the Academy of Inscriptions at Belles Lettres, Mr. Maspero tried to place these kings in the 12th dynasty, then he attributed them to the 18th dynasty, next to the 5th, then to the 4th. End quote. After refuting his detractions, Emelinu concludes, quote, those are reasons which seem to me not to not to deserve scorn, but rather to merit serious consideration by scholars of goodwill. For the others do not count, in my opinion." End quote. To Melinu, we owe the discovery of Osiris' temple at Abydos, thanks to which Osiris could no longer be considered a mythical hero, but a historic personage, an initial ancestor of the pharaohs, a black ancestor, as was his sister Isis. Thus we can understand why the Egyptians always painted their gods black as coal, in the image of their race. From the beginning to the end of their history, it would be paradoxical and quite incomprehensible for a white people never to have painted its gods white, but to choose, on the contrary, to depict its most sacred beings in the black color of Isis and Osiris of Egyptian monuments. This fact reveals one of the contradictions of the moderns who asserts dogmatically that the white race created Egyptian civilization with the enslaved black race living by its side. The choice of the slave's color rather than that of the masters of civilizers to represent the deities is, to say the least, admissible and should shock a logical, objective mind. So it is that Amilinu, after his tremendous finds and his in-depth study of Egyptian society, reaches the following conclusion of the major importance for the history of mankind. From various Egyptian legends, I have been able to conclude that the populations settled in the Nile Valley were Negroes. Since the goddess Isis was said to have been a reddish-black woman, in other words, as I explained, her complexion is cafe au lait, coffee with milk, the same as that of certain other blacks whose skin seems to cast metallic reflections of copper. Amilinu designates the first black race to occupy Egypt by the name Anu. He shows that it came slowly down the Nile and founded the cities of Esne, Arment, Ouch, and Heliopolis, for as he says, all those cities have the characteristic symbol which serves to denote the name Anu. It is also in the ethnic sense that we must read the term Anu applied to Osiris. As a matter of fact, in the chapter including hymns in honor of Ra and containing chapter 15 of the Book of the Dead, we read, quote, "Hail to thee, O God Ani, in the mountainous land of Antum, O great God, falcon of the double solar mountain," end quote. If Osiris was of Nubian origin, although born at Thebes, it would be easy to understand why the struggle between Set and Horus took place in Nubia. In any case, it is striking that the goddess Isis, according to the legend, has precisely the same skin color that Nubians always had, and that the god Osiris has what seems to be an ethnic epithet indicating his Nubian origin. Apparently, his observation has never been made. If we accept the evidence of our own creations, the Book of the Dead, among others, the Anu, whom Maspero tried to transform into Arabs, apparently essentially as blacks, in support of Amilinu's theory, it may be pointed out that Anu means man in Diola. Thus, Anus originally may have meant men. For other similarities, see chapter 10. According to Amilinu, the black race, the Anu, probably created prehistoric times all the elements of Egyptian civilization, which persists without significant change throughout its long existence. These blacks were probably the first to practice agriculture, to irrigate the valley of the Nile, build dams, invent sciences, arts, writing, the calendar. They created the cosmogony contained in the Book of the Dead, texts which leave no doubt about the Negroness of the race that conceived the ideas. So, how many references have we shown that the Africans created the calendar and writing? Come on now. How many references have I shown in this live stream? Is this not the number one live stream for quote-unquote black people in the year 2026 that's giving them liberating information to show that their ancestors are responsible for what we're using currently. However, the inferiority complex that the quote-unquote black people are facing, they have to contend and basically use our modern day inventions that black people created within the past 500 years to justify themselves, to basically say that, oh, we created the cotton gin, oh, we created the first human transplant, oh, we created the first light. You know, we have to, you know, but that's just the icing of the cake. So let me go back and show. Let's go back to the journey of the Songhai people. So this is from the journey of the Songhai people. This is page 26. Page 26. I want y'all to pay attention here. In the rich African history, one may ask, quote, what is in rich African history, end quote. We answer, quote, cultural and anthropological history, end quote. Cultural history of Africa is wise, necessary, and good, but anthropology is an absolute necessity. African anthropology scientifically explains our physical characteristics in such a dynamic way that the learner will view in the end that instead of being badges of degradation, our hair, facial features, skin color, and bodily build are characteristics of advanced evolution. One may ask, quote, why Africa? We're here in America, end quote. So I'm going to stop on this point, right? We're about to examine this point right here. Why Africa? We're here in America. So on social media, on TikTok, on X, Facebook, etc., you got these different quote-unquote African Americans saying that, oh, we're in America, this is our land, right? Not ignorant of the origin of Homo sapiens. So Homo sapiens only come from Africa. That's number one. So mitochondrial Eve, mitochondrial DNA traces back in Africa. So you have African Americans who are ignorant of africanmoors history, that don't know that their ancestors, while the transatlantic slave trade was going on, their ancestors were enslaving the Europeans and holding them for ransom and establishing treaties and creating corporations. They don't know that their ancestors were responsible for this. And not only that, they don't know that their ancestors, the so-called black people that are in these Greek fraternities and Greek sororities and these fraternal orders, Masons, Illuminati, Shriners, Knights Templar, all these orders, they don't know that their ancestors are responsible for writing, are responsible for the 365 and the quarter day calendar, are responsible for mathematics, are responsible for chemistry, are responsible for astronomy, are responsible for science, etc. And they're saying, why Africa? We're here in America. Do you see how goofy this is? And nobody's saying nothing. Okay, so let's continue. We answer, quote, the cotton fields are the point in time. Hang on. That's in the way. Okay. The cotton fields are that point in time which we have cultural amnesia, end quote. The amnesia must be cured. It is about Africa that the myths have been fabricated. It is no myth about Booker T or Carver. Why America reluctantly allows African American history to come through. They even sweeten it. By our trauma results from myths about Africa, both culturally and anthropologically. Therefore, we must correct the current myths. African history is the cake and African American history is the icing. So when we hear about Louis Lattimore being the actual creator of the light bulb, or the science of the light bulb, when we talk about the first human heart transplant, we talk about the street lights, we talk about the refrigerator, etc. We talk about all this stuff. This is just the icing of the cake. The sciences trace back into Africa. The origin of Homo sapien traces back into Africa. Greek philosophy, which is actually stolen African philosophy, traces back into Africa. So, I want to touch on that. Should we continue with the calendar? Should we continue with let us do that. Let me see what else we got. So hopefully y'all are seeing the goofiness of I don't know if I read this already, but we're gonna go back to the Journey of the Songhai People. That's page 72.
Now you're just showing off. For a great low rate, go with the general.
We already went over that. Alright, so supposedly I didn't upload this page for some reason. Let me upload this page really quickly. Let me upload this page really quickly so I can show y'all. One moment. Okay. So we have page 72 of Journey of the Songhai People, continuing from the 365 in the quarter day calendar with evidence. So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start right here, page 72 of Journey of the Songhai People. Community development began some 37,000 years BC at Jo's Plateau, of what we now call central Nigeria, in the Rift Valley of South Central Africa near the Great Falls of Colombo. However, it was not until 6000 BC that settled agricultural communities first appeared. Jericho was one of those first cities built in Asia Minor. Asia Minor, in the valley of the River Jordan. Another was Fayum Lake, near the delta of the Nile River. The settled Stone Age communities existed around 4,500 BC. Egyptian civilization developed as a result of the natural rich soil deposited by the overflow of the Nile. They found they could plant seeds, grow food, and have a surplus. With the surplus of grain, food, people came from surrounding areas, which developed a new kind of social relationship with the division of labor and a new way of living through the building of cities. As the communities grew, the people of the Nile developed a central government in the era of 4,200 BC, and thereby began the first 365 solar, lunar, and stellar calendars. Circa 3000 BC, the first dynasty of Egyptian pharaohs was founded by Menes. 500 years later, the surplus of wealth was so great that Cheops built the Great Pyramid. On this note, the pyramid, let's consider this observation as quoted from PAFO's Cultural Genesis Chapter 2. The ancient civilization of Egypt spread from south to north, and there is seemingly no doubt that the earliest center of civilization in Africa, Al-Kibulan, was the country watered by the Upper Nile. The principal state of this Ethiopian country bore the well-known name of Mauros. The ground belief is that the civilization of Mauros precedes that of Egypt. So, 365-day calendar, right? This is our third reference showing the 365 quarter day calendar, and I got even more. Alright, we can show Dr. John L. Johnson. I didn't even upload this to I'm gonna upload them really quick, so just to show you. This is just the icing on the cake. This wasn't even going to be a part of this this live stream, but we're doing it anyway. So now we're going to look at the book that I showed earlier on the screen. Spiritual Warriors and Healers by Dr. Mfudisi Jehutimus Ka and Haru Hassan K. Salim. So earlier I mentioned that I had disagreed with Dr. Mfudisi on his assessment of we shouldn't be criticizing our deceased African scholars, but clearly Dr. Sheikh Anta, unfortunately due to human error, made the mistake of not addressing the etymology of the word Moor. Now this has caused confusion with Dr. Mfudisi Jehutimus from what I've seen on YouTube and his lectures or his debates with other or on regards to Moors, the Moors and that he has interacted with, from what I've seen. So this is on page 38 of Spiritual Warriors and Healers. I think this is the introduction. So back to the 365 and quarter day calendar. Chemic chronology. Hang on, I'm waiting for that to go away. Kemetic chronology of ancient Kemet, an African Center overview. In order to understand ancient Kemet, it is important to study the chronology of our ancient story. Kemetic our story was ancient, and civilization in Africa was in full bloom long before the so-called First Dynasty. Pay attention. Africans along the Happy Nile River had developed writing, mathematics, the 12 and 13 month calendar of 365 and a quarter days, astronomy, masonry, a matriarchal political system based on native black African royalty, and a well-defined spiritual system in place before 4240 BCE. The Heru Aketi, or Sphinx, Neb-Hu, was already 5,000 years old by the so-called First Dynasty, or the beginning of the old period of reunification, proving that the dynamic African civilization was living in the Happy Valley while the rest of the known world was still asleep and barbaric. 4240 BCE. before Common Era equals 1 ST, or Smai-Tawi, or Pert Spet Hanan Ra, the helical rising of Sirius together with the sun, New African Time, 4240 BCE to 2180 BCE, from 1 ST, or Smai-Tawi, to 1160 Smai-Tawi. First Golden Age, the Old Kingdom, Kemetic civilization fully established. Writing, a calendar, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, masonry, shipbuilding, all in place by the so-called First Dynasty. Merkutu, the Pyramid Age, lasted for about 1,500 to 1,800 years. The old period ends around 2180 BCE, or 1160 ST Smai-Tawi. So you see it here. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a doctor's degree as of yet, but I've just shown you. How many doctors have I shown? Like, I've shown like 5-6 doctors saying the same thing. Now you have to see how ridiculous this is. I probably even showed 7 doctors. Oh, we got Calvin Robinson. I don't know if Redmond Ballows has the doctors. Edward Robinson. Both of those are legal and Juris doctors. Thomas Brophy, PhD, Black Genesis. Dr. Sheikhat Tajot. Dr. Albert Churchwood. Dr. Infudisi Jehutimus. Look, it's ridiculous, and I may even show Dr. John L. Johnson. Wait. Hang on, but you got these swarthy brothers pledging Greek. Now this is the book, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. Hold on, I don't know what's going on. Okay, there we go. I don't know why it's not letting me scroll on the page. That's very annoying. I can't even, like, hang on. I might need to, hang on. Give me one moment. We need to go to the book. Are y'all enjoying the live stream as of late? I know it's been a long live streams thus far, but we're just showing the goofiness of the swarthy people in these fraternities. It's really goofy, and somebody needs to say something. And now this is the book, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. I can't show the title, it seems, but we're going to go to page 199, as y'all just seen when we first got here. So, we got here. I don't know what chapter this is. I'm gonna give you the chapter. I don't see it. Queen Victoria. No. I don't know. I'm gonna just give you the page 199 of the ebook, The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stated, quote, all truth pass through 3 stages. First is ridiculed, second is violently opposed, third is accepted as self-evident, end quote. At the dawn of history, the human race in waves migrated from the continent of Africa to the remote regions of the earth. Those early explorers were the first to settle in Europe, as well as other lands. They invented man's first tools, weapons, the art of hunting, of domesticating animals, the wheel, plow, agriculture, irrigation, sculpture, drawing, painting, chess, paper, steam engines, engineering, architect, skyscrapers, pyramids, banks, post offices, etc., an achievement which the rest of the world embraced to construct its own civilizations. The Africans also invented the world's first alphabet, the concept of the universe, government, king, queen, religion, medicine, the study of anatomy, hospitals, the skill of surgery, spectacles, the textile industry, universities, metaphysics, chemistry, military tactics, navigational instruments, propellers, sea vessels, diving equipment, aeronautics, computers, philosophy, mathematical sciences, and marvelous accomplishment that led to the development of Western civilization. And as you can see here, these are the references to back that up. So, yeah, man, we haven't even gotten to African comedic worldview. Comedic African worldview. So back to the calendar. 365 in the day quarter calendar. I'm gonna give y'all some more doctors. Let me bring up the book. Hang on. I don't have the book on Everand, so let me send it. And we're gonna show it on the screen shortly. Let me zoom out. Let's refresh this page. So we have here, let me show the title of the book. Hang on. So we're looking at this book now. Kemet and the African Worldview by editors Milena Karanga and Jacob Crothers. I got this reference from Dr. Infudisi Jehutimes. And this is page 72. As you can see here, the title right here, Kemet and the African Worldview. Kemet and the African Worldview. Memphite theology. We're going to read this whole page, but we really want to focus on this part. Memphite theology, taken from the city of Memphis, shows the existence of intelligence which interprets nature and provides a framework for judging right and wrong. Quote, it is the heart, mind, which causes every completed concept to come forth, and is the tongue, voice, which announces what the heart thinks. Thus all the gods were formed. Indeed, all the divine order came into being through what the heart thought and the tongue commanded. Thus justice was given to him who does what is desired. Thus life was given to him who has peace, and death was given to him who has sin. Thus were made all work and all crafts, the action of the arms, the movement of the legs, and the activity of every member of the body, in conformance with the command which the heart thought, which came forth through the tongue, and which gives the value of everything, end quote. In addition to religious philosophy, documents from the Third Dynasty show advanced thinking in science. Medical surgeons classify broken bones, explain technical terms, prescribe medication and treatment, and observe the progress of patients. Already in use was a 365-day calendar linking the annual rise of the Nile and the visibility of the Dog Star on the eastern horizon with specific days. Work for the Egyptian people took on the atmosphere of ritual. There was a pervasive desire in the individual to enter the realm of the divine through good deeds. The Egyptian psychology of life gave animation to everything in the universe and made no sharp distinction among living and dead, human and divine. Such thinking allowed one to blend the human with God, so each could enter into the category of the other. The person sought godliness through a devotion to labor. The result was a culture unsurpassed in its power to master the elements of survival and artistic expression. So I have just provided to you that the Africans are responsible for the 365 and a quarter day calendar before any other humans on the planet. Now, the quote-unquote black people do not know that their history beyond the transatlantic slave trade. They do not know their culture. They have the inferiority complex that they just spawned from slavery and were bred by their slave masters, supposedly. I'm just giving my opinion on the psychology of their thinking. So they're not linking human history together. They're just thinking that transatlantic slave trade is the start of their genesis. And they're not researching Moorish African history as well as African Kemetic history and its connection. Even Songhai Empire connection to them. So they're not linking it together. They're just thinking that the transatlantic slave trade is the origin of what they came from, which is a farce and it's a facade and an illusion. It's a part of the brainwashing that's been incorporated into our educational system in the Western Hemisphere. So, and all throughout the world, the diaspora as well, by use of religion and distortion of history. So, as I said, shown earlier, Greek philosophy is pushed into these educational institutions, as shown in George G.M. James' book, Stolen Legacy. And these swarthy, dark-skinned people in the diaspora joining these Greek fraternities and sororities just to fit in and get benefits, as opposed to going to their African Moorish roots, which are responsible for writing, mathematics, science, astronomy, the 365 and quarter day calendar, the will, etc. And this clearly shows the goofiness that the quote-unquote black people are facing today. And it's unfortunate because these celebrities, big platform hosts and news channels are not going to share this information because, for reasons unbeknownst to me, for control and the oath or obligations that they've taken to these fraternities and sororities to withhold this knowledge from the quote-unquote black people today, so they can't free themselves and liberate their minds from the programming and brainwashing that has been taking place for the past millennia. So it's quite unfortunate, and we need these people, these individuals with bigger outreach of people and resources to pitch in and help in the struggle, because they can play a huge factor in shedding light on this topic. However, a lot of these people are in these so-called Greek fraternities and sororities, and I guess they just don't want to be uncomfortable. They're not prepared to get uncomfortable. So until then, the quote-unquote black people will continue to be brainwashed and programmed of their African Moorish history, and not know that their ancestors created these various sciences, i.e. the 365 and a quarter day calendar that we're still using today, writing that we're still using today, the alphabet that we're still using today, mathematics that we're still using today, astronomy that we're still using today, masonry that we're still using today, etc. And I thank y'all for joining our live stream. This is our 60th live stream, so let's go back here. Make sure y'all subscribe to our channel. Watch our live streams. Put the playlist on. We go over a lot of the topics, and we are trying to increase our watch time so that we continue to move forward, and the more views and more interaction we get from you guys, it helps us reach our intermediate goals, and we can continue to put out more content at a faster rate, with you all engaging with our content, commenting, and feel free to leave criticism, whether it be good, positive, or negative. We accept criticism, and we look forward to it, because we understand that those are the challenges that we will have to face in the upcoming decade. So make sure y'all watch all the live streams, put them on play all, put them on shuffle, play them while you're in your car, driving, commuting through these traffic lights that were created by a black man, or quote-unquote black man, or Swarthy person. The reason that you're even able to use and view the monitor on your phone, or the screen in general, is thanks to Louis Lattimore. And this is just the icing of the cake for the quote-unquote African Americans or black people in the diaspora. This is just the icing on the cake. However, they are ignorant that the Africans are responsible for writing and the alphabet, mathematics, sciences, etc. So, till then, it's the goofiness of Swarthy people and Greek fraternities, and I thank y'all for tuning in. And we live stream every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Make sure you tune in. We have more slow-moed Moorish portals coming, so make sure y'all stay tuned. We have some exciting things coming in the future, and make sure y'all shop for our merchandise. We have esoteric clothing, esoteric streetwear, and other merchandise and accessories as well. So check that out. All that can be found in the description. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment, and share. And I will see you guys next week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. And we are out. This is... Nope, that's not it.